if my voice is linking with the video, sometimes I can make a little adjustment there and fix it up. But let's get right started. Let's talk about, so how long should your workouts be? And I like to first start off with just going over some general rules that is gonna work for all the different types of workouts we're going to be talking about. We're talking about like aerobic, like what you should do to make your heart stronger, and then we're going to talk about like resistance training, how long I like the workouts to be, and I'm going to give you like a general structure of how I think you should structure these workouts. But these are some general rules that are going to work for all of them. The first thing is, this is a general rule of mine, is that hard workouts should be relatively on the short side. Like the harder you're working out, the shorter it should be. Okay. Now long workouts can be easy, obviously, but if you're working out long, it should not be hard. Easy to moderate. And here are a couple of rules that almost like work together. Like work out to create the response you want. What I mean by that is that you reach a point of diminishing return so quickly with exercise that you don't want to control your weight with exercise. That's the big thing. You want to work out to create the response, meaning that when you're doing aerobics, you can do like short, hard aerobics and increase your cardiovascular strength, increase your VO2 max, which we're going to talk about in the next slide, by doing very short, hard workouts. But if you get into the grind, and I did this for 20 years of my life, and there's a famous guy Mark Sesson, who I read all his books. He wrote the original Primal Blueprint, and he's one of these paleo type guys. He was a world-class endurance athlete, and he coined the phrase chronic cardio, where people would work out like pretty hard for extended periods of time, and it leads to so many problems, and people start controlling their weight by how much exercise you're doing. You can do it short term, like say you got a wedding coming up and you just want you to lose the weight really quick, and you may want to overtrain for a few weeks. But if you get into the mindset where you're looking at your workouts like the more calories I burn, the better the workout is, it's going to be a losing battle. Just think about it. You work out really hard for an hour, like really hard. What are you going to burn? 500 calories? You can eat 500 calories in 2 minutes, right? In 5 minutes. So you really want to work out to create the response you want, meaning you want the optimal amount of results in the minimal amount of time. And that's going to be like the core takeaway, from this whole presentation. It'll all make sense to you more as we go through. So let's skip over to the second slide. So anyone have any questions, just let me know. Hopefully the sound, give me a thumbs up if the sound and the picture quality is coming off good. I know we got a few people in the room. That would be really really helpful to me. I don't want to do this whole presentation and like no one can hear me or something, but I'm assuming it's going through. Okay, so let's talk about cardio first. And there are my two favorite like cardiovascular workouts are the short hard workout. Some people call it like high, like that HIIT type training, that high interval type training, that high intensity type training, which lasts around 15 minutes or less. We're going to talk about that in detail. Now, my other favorite type of cardiovascular workout is like that long, easy workout where you're doing, say, aerobics at a comfortable level for 60 minutes or more. And I also wanted to add this in, even though this is the type of cardio that I've really been staying away from a long time, which is the steady state cardio, which I'm going to break these all down to you in great detail. But let's first go over the short, hard cardio workout. And this is what I would call like your VO2 max workout. Let's first define what VO2 max. VO2 max is your maximal oxygen consumption, meaning that when you're fit, you're going to be able to burn more oxygen. I always describe it to people like, if you look at like cars, for example, you look like a Ferrari, right, with like a 12-cylinder tremendous engine. Like your floor Ferrari, you're going to burn a lot of gasoline, really fast, compared to like an economy car. You take a little, say, Honda Civic, you floor it, even though maybe the RPMs with the engines are moving at the same speed, you just can't burn the gasoline in an economy car. So when you increase your VO2 max from, say, improving your cardiovascular fitness, you're able to consume and burn more oxygen. And that that's a good indicator of how aerobically fit you are. Now, to increase your VO2 max, you have to do a more high intensity type aerobic exercise. You're still going to build, even if you're walking, you're still going to be increasing your VO2 max to some degree. But the thing where people make mistakes, I think, when it comes to high intensity aerobics is that they do it for too long of a period of time, when all the research is indicating that you can max out your genetic potential for your VO2 max doing these short, high intensity type workouts. So for example, you can just spend 15 minutes like twice a week, even once a week, and dramatically increase your VO2 max. And let me give you an example. You know that classic formula, like 220 minus your age, that would be your maximum heart rate. So if you train at, say, 90% your maximum heart rate for your intervals, and you only did intervals that were lasting, say, 30 seconds long, and you only did 7 of them, you're going to get a dramatic improvement in your VO2 max in a workout that's going to last less than 15 minutes. There's even a lot of research that's saying just a 4-minute workout like this, for where you're only doing maybe 10-second intervals. There's many different ways to do this high intensity type training when it comes to increasing your VO2 max. But I like that general around a 15-minute workout. First, you warm up for 4 minutes. You increase your body temperature, get your joints, your knees, your back, your hips ready to work hard. Then you have to pick something that involves a large muscle group, like you're running, you're walking, you're biking. Even jumping jacks are a great way to do a cardio workout. And just like a little trivia, you know who invented the jumping jack? Jack LaLanne, right? That's why they're calling jumping jacks, not jumping jacks. Okay, great. It's 10 minutes of cardio with 30-second intervals. Yes. Now let me pull this question. Another great question. Absolutely. 10 minutes of cardio with 2 30-second intervals. I think that's good. I probably would do a few more than just 2, maybe 4 or 5. But even 2 30-second intervals, I think, yes. I think that can definitely work. No doubt. But I kind of like this 15-minute tech, because for me, since I've been training thousands of people over like 30 years, I find that people do better psychologically once they warm up a little bit. So you take a nice 4 or 5 minute warm up, then you can do your 30-second intervals or even your 10-second intervals. But don't take this high intensity workout and make it too long. And I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to pull up some studies saying why I think not only is it detrimental to your health, it's not going to improve your VO2 max any more than just spending, say, 15 minutes a couple times a week. Okay, so let's go over to the next slide. Okay, let's talk about what I would consider to be my favorite type of aerobic activity, especially now since I'm older, I'm 58. And most people who like to work out really neglect, I think, the long, easy type of working out, the aerobic base building. Say, for example, this morning, before I did this presentation, I woke up this morning, had a couple of cups of black coffee, and then I took a 2-hour, relatively easy walk along this like North County trail near my house. I actually love it. It's like I'm meditating when I'm moving. Psychologically, it's so good for you. Plus, I'm building my aerobic base. Okay. Now, and I wanted to pull up this study because there are so many, unfortunately, there's so much research now that came out in the last 10 years that's saying that doing that like hard cardio type training, where you're like 90% of your max, say you're doing these intervals, but you're doing them for extended periods of time. You're doing them like, say you're in a spinning class, you're doing them for like an hour and 15 minutes. If you do that for years, for decades, it can truly damage your heart. And there are unfortunately, so many world-class endurance athletes like Mark Spitz. I talked about him before in other videos. He has AFib. AFib means an irregular heartbeat. Okay, people like Larry Bird, remember the basketball player, he has it. Jerry West has it. Billie Jean King has AFib. And there's a lot of research that's saying that when you work out for long periods of time, it shouldn't be hard, especially when you can get the most benefit doing shorter workouts. So you have to really be careful doing long, hard aerobic sessions for extended periods of time. So if I'm working out like beyond, say, 30, 45 minutes, I really love the long, easy. I put 60 minutes here. I like to take 60-minute walks on a regular basis, but I like to even do 2-hour walks, 2-3 times a week. And let me talk about this guy, 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝘾𝙃. 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝘾𝙃 is like a PhD. He's worked with world-class athletes. He's like an expert on aerobic conditioning, on training these world-class athletes. He's also a guy that believes in more of my type of a diet, more of a higher fat, like fat-adapted type diet, where athletes who burn more fats as opposed to carbohydrates. And this is a formula that he uses, and I like a modified version of it. Instead of using 160, sometimes he may go as high as 170 or 180, but this is the formula I like to use, that I like to recommend to most people doing that long, easy aerobic base building workout. You take 160 and you minus your age. So for example, if you're 60 years old, you minus 60 from 160, it gives you a heart rate of 100 beats per minute. That's the ideal like aerobic zone heart rate to make your heart stronger, to become more of like a fat burner. And here's a real cool way of actually doing it and improving. So for example, let's say you're going to be walking for 60 minutes. You're 60 years old, or if you're 50 years old, you would be at a heart rate of 110 beats per minute, right? You want to cover as much ground as you possibly can while not letting your heart rate go above, say if you're 60, 100 beats per minute. So let's say, for example, the first time you walk for 1 hour, you're taking your pulse, either you're wearing like a heart rate monitor, an Apple Watch or something, or you just stop every, say, 10 minutes and you take your pulse and you say, okay, I'm at like 95, I'm right at 100. And then say after an hour, let's say you walked, I'm just going to make it up, let's say you walked 3 miles. So the next time you walk, the goal is going to be you want to cover more ground while not letting your heart rate go any higher. It's incredible. So you're actually building your aerobic base. What you're doing is you're programming your heart to become stronger without necessarily going any higher at the same level of intensity, which is really incredible. Like, for example, some of the, my favorite, world-class athletes, like those double Ironman guys, they seem to mostly be more like in their 40s because they really figured out how to train. They may run 52 miles and their heart rate doesn't go above 115 beats the whole time, which is just mind-blowing, incredible. Not all athletes are like that. A lot of guys are running marathons and just like at that anaerobic threshold, just cranking it, burning carbs the whole way. They're carb athletes. They're they're, in my opinion, breaking their body down. But I like the approach where you just train yourself to get stronger and stronger while keeping your heart rate at a good, comfortable, safe level. You'll never run into trouble. So now this is if you want to, take it to the next level, but I think it's totally okay just to take hour-long walks, hour-and-a-half-long walks at comfortable paces without even taking your pulse. It's ideal. So what I think you should do when it comes to making your heart stronger is like once or twice a week, go do an interval type workout like I discussed in this previous slide where you're spending like 15 minutes, you're doing some, hard intervals, just a few of them. And then the second type of aerobic workout I'd like you to do is that long, easy. Even if it's 45 minutes, even if it's 30 minutes, whatever you got. Whenever you can, take a nice, long, easy walk. The health benefits are incredible. I just want to make sure, is everyone out there, everyone doing okay? You can hear me okay? I got one comment, so sounds good, lighting's good. Okay, I'm assuming it is, so let's keep moving on. See, I just want to talk about this steady state. And I also wanted to reference, too, about another article I pulled up, another study I pulled up about people. This is just a temporary effect, but it kind of coincides with the type of aerobics I don't like. Like, for example, this steady state. The classic steady state, I think it's okay as long as you don't let your heart rate go too high. Like, for example, okay, let's see what we got here again. Okay, I want to work out 5 times a week for 30 minutes, starting with 20 minutes if resistance training and finish up with 10 minutes of cardio with 2. I think that's great. I love it. I think that's perfect. We're going to talk about resistance training workouts, and this 30-minute routine is going to fit right into that plan. And then you want to just like top it off with some high interval work in 2 30-second intervals. I think that's fine, but you might even get a little more benefit. Instead of doing just 2 30 seconds, maybe you want to do like you do like 10 seconds really hard, 10 seconds easy, and maybe do like 6 intervals. That might be a little bit more beneficial than doing 1 2 30-second intervals. But I think they're both really good. I like that plan. I like how you're thinking, for sure. Okay. When it comes to this study, I just like to pull this up because I don't want people doing like steady state cardio at like a high level. It really does put stress on your kidneys. These are studies showing how marathon runners had like temporary stress in the kidneys. It's very stressful doing hard cardio for extended periods of time regularly. Like if you find yourself like running 50, 60 miles a week and just like biking 30, 50 miles a day regularly for long periods of time at a high heart rate, you really are putting yourself at risk for AFib down the road and for issues like these marathon runners we're dealing with these, markers in the blood that show that you're just stressing your kidneys out. You don't want to be constantly breaking yourself down. That's the point I want to get through. So I don't like those in between. I like either short, hard, long, easy. But this steady state type workout, this is like the classic workout, like 220 minus your age, and then you work at like 65 to 85% of your max heart rate. I think it's okay as long as you keep it on the lower end, more like maybe 75% of your max heart rate, which is not all that different than the long, easy cardio workout, where instead of using 160, like Phil Maffetone, sometimes if he's dealing with younger athletes, he may use 180 minus your age. If you're using 180 minus your age, that's going to put you more into this like 75% of your max heart rate, which I think that's okay. What you want to avoid, and I put a note here, you want to avoid that long, hard, or moderate duration, chronic cardio where you're like 85, 90% of your max heart rate and you're there 45 minutes to an hour. And unfortunately, I still think that's the most common type of aerobic training that people do. They go into the spin classes, they go into these like boutique type, really brutally hard exercise classes. I don't want to name them, but I'm sure you know the ones I'm talking about, where they just like yelling at you. They want you 85, 90%, like harder, longer is always better. It's really the exact opposite. You reach a point of diminishing returns. Plus, you get psychologically addicted to the endorphins of working out. It took me a long time. I have to say, I did overtrain for 20, 25 years of my life. I really did. All in my 20s, 30s, and like, maybe mid 40s, I kind of smartened up. And it took me a long time where I get that same buzz. When I take a 2 hour walk now, I just love it. And I get the same euphoric feeling as if I'm doing like a really hard hour of aerobics. And it took me a long time to realize that. Like, I've trained guys who are like marathon runners and their knees up there, they got so many different injuries, they're so banged up. I say, why don't you just bike today? Go bike for 10 miles easy. And they're telling me they biked for 10 miles. Then they got back on, they had to go run 10 miles because they felt like they didn't get a workout. You have to, if you love to work out, you have to get used to the long, easy workout when you get older, for sure. And there's so much benefit to it. Okay, so let's move on. Any questions, anybody? I'm assuming I'm coming through good. All the it's interesting because I know I got a couple of comments from YouTube. I wonder if anyone on Facebook is watching it. See, I hope this is going out to everyone, because I never used this software, this Restream software. So we'll see. Okay, now let's talk about my 2 favorite type of like resistance trainings, and it's somewhat similar to the aerobics, but in my opinion, I don't think you should do resistance training for more than say 45 minutes. But my 2 favorite types, I'm going to give you examples. It once again is that short, hard resistance training, lasting anywhere between say 10 to 20 minutes. I'll give you specific examples. And I also like the moderate to hard resistance training, which lasts about 45 minutes or less. And it's funny, and this is what I like to do. And I'll break down like my workout for you in more detail. But let's first cover go to the next slide, and we'll cover the short, hard aerobic workout. Let's see what we got here. And who I wanted to bring up here is Arthur Jones. See, the first gym I ever joined was actually a Nautilus gym. Arthur Jones invented Nautilus equipment, and this is back. I wasn't even driving yet. I must have been about 15 years old. Say I'm in maybe like 10th grade, 1970. What's that? 76, something like that. And at the time, I was a big fan of like bodybuilders back then, like Arnold and Frank Zane. Like the picture behind me is Frank Zane and Franco Columbu, all the original bodybuilders, and they were really doing more high volume type training. They would go and work out for 2 hours a day lifting weights. And then Arthur Jones came along with a completely different concept, that he was the originator really of the high intensity type workout. And bodybuilders back then, and even nowadays, they were doing like, they would go to the gym and just train like 2 body parts for 2 hours, like doing a tremendous amount of sets, multiple sessions during the week, work out 6 days a week, like that. And then Arthur Jones came along, and he believed in a completely different philosophy. And I have to say, he was right about so many things. He believed in like high intensity. He believed in training your full body. Let me go over some of his principles, which makes sense. He wanted you to do like 1 set of like 4 to 6 exercises for lower body, 1 set of 6 to 8 exercises for upper body, no more than like 12 exercises, per workout, full body workouts. He wanted you to do these workouts like 3 times a week. He wanted the rep range to be about 8 to 12 repetitions. So he would want you to warm up in the first few repetitions of a set because you're only doing one set, right? He would train to failure. That means every set, right to momentary muscle failure. You work your largest muscles first. For example, you would train your back, before you would train your biceps, because your biceps would be your weak link when you're training your back. He also believed in something called pre-exhaustion, which is really interesting. Pre-exhaustion just means that, like, for example, when you're doing, let's say you're doing a pull-up, right? When you're doing a pull-up, your biceps and back are the primary muscles being worked. Your biceps are so much smaller than your back that they generally give away sooner. So he would have these machines where you would do, say, a pull-over. You would do an exercise that didn't involve your biceps before you would train your back. So you would pre-exhaust your back. I know there's some new research in the last 10 years that said, no, that it doesn't work like that. But I still think there's a lot of merit to pre-exhaustion. Let's see, we got another question here. A bit of an off-topic. I need to lose 100 pounds and I can't choose between a water fast and a 500 calorie protein sparing modified. It's hard to say. 100 pounds obviously is a lot of weight to lose. When you mean water fasting and a 500 calorie protein sparing modified, I'm not really into protein sparing. I think you should definitely have at least 1 gram of protein per pound of a lean body weight. So for example, let's say if you're 100 pounds, I know I'm just making it up, and you're 10% body fat, I want you to eat about 80 grams of protein. I wouldn't spare protein. Protein has the highest thermic effect of all the macronutrients. I would want you on like more of a low carb, moderate to high protein, adequate amount of fat type diet, and I would incorporate for sure some intermittent fasting, all the different strategies. I would rotate the strategies. Like I would do like a 16-8 a couple days a week. I would do like an 18-6. I would do an OMAD maybe 1 day a week, maybe a 24-hour fast, maybe 1 day a week. And I would just take your time, be consistent. I like your workout plan, and it'll happen. You gotta the key is to be consistent. Okay. Hey, Pauline, great. Thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. Pauline's always on my live videos and follows my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. Do you have a specific full body focus routine that you can recommend? Yeah, sure. I'll talk about that more as we go. But in this particular live thing, I was talking about more about time duration, but about how long the workout should be. But I'll definitely talk about it. I'll talk about it right here with the short, hard one. Okay, but let me just finish this whole thing. So he also wanted to do a relatively slow rep cadence, like a 5-second rep cadence, which I like, and consistently try to keep on getting stronger. And I think this is like just a great program that you can incorporate with everything. Like Pauline wanted to know a specific routine. Like Nautilus was done on all Nautilus equipment, but you can take this short, hard workout concept that lasts anywhere between, what did I mark it here, between say 10 to 20 minutes. And you can just train your whole body, whether at home or at the gym, really simple. Like for example, what I would do, you can just do a set of squats, body weight squats. You can hold dumbbells in your hand if you want to make them a little bit harder. Then you do a set of lunges, and lunges you can go right to momentary muscle failure. After doing lunges, you can do like a wall squat where you're working really hard within 30 seconds. Right after that, you can do your push-ups. Right, hopefully maybe have some dumbbells at home. You can do some rowing movements. You can do like a dumbbell row. You can do a dumbbell pullover. You do like lateral raises. You can do shoulder presses, bicep curl, tricep extension, some planks, a little bicycle, some abdominal work. Pretty much you want to work pretty hard, using this concept. But that's my whole theory. If you're working really hard, it should be short in duration, and you can get a great workout in 20 minutes. You can see I'm going to pop to this next slide. I want to give you like another alternative to this. Like instead of, that's more the first one, that Arthur Jones is more like a 20 to 30 minute workout. This is a doctor I want to talk about. I think this guy is great. I loved his book too. He wrote this book called The PE Diet, one of my favorite books of last year. And look at the picture of him. This is, I don't always pronounce his name wrong, Dr. Ted Naiman. I think it's pronounced Naiman. I think not Neiman, I think it's Naiman. He used to be a vegetarian. Now he switched over to his PE diet, which is more of a higher protein, type diet. And what he does, if you look at the difference here, it's really incredible. He does these short 10-minute, high-intensity workouts every day. And he does more like, I don't know if I would use the term functional, but his workouts are more like push-ups, pull-ups, burpees, like jumping jacks. He just pretty much like brutalizes himself just for 10 minutes. And look how low body fat, like the levels of body fat he reached. And he's not, he's younger than me. I'm going to guess maybe he's somewhere in his 30s. But the whole point of this is that even if Pauline, if you want to do something, you literally, if you want to do like short, hard workouts lasting 10 minutes, you can easily do things like, push-ups, pull-ups. I mean, it's hard for women to do pull-ups. If you do pull-ups, you may want to put one of those resistance bands around your feet to make your body weight a little lighter. But you can do jumping jacks, burpees, planks. Just pretty much work really hard. Like I like to say 90% effort instead of really going to failure for 10 minutes. And the fact that the workout is so short and you're creating a response, you can do it like on a daily basis. Because it's taxing the body, but you're not overdoing it because the workout is only 10 minutes long. I think this is a great way to train too. I mean, you can use a combination of all these things. Like you can do more of a like Nautilus, Arthur Jones type workout when you have more time, which can last 20 to 30 minutes. Then, maybe, do a couple of 10-minute workouts like this a week. The whole thing is you can really get a lot done in a short amount of time if the intensity is high. But if you like to work out for long periods of time, it should not be that hard. That's going to be I do workouts like this, but my favorite type of workout when it comes to resistance training is what we're going to talk about next, which is more of the, I like to say moderate to hard. And this is kind of how I train. I do most of my resistance training. Like besides my aerobics, I do exactly what I talked about earlier. I do those short, high intensity aerobic type workouts, maybe twice a week. Then I walk for 2 hours, at least like 2, sometimes even 3 times a week. And then I try to get in at least 2 or 3 of these 45-minute moderate aerobic works, which I'll break down. But let's see, pulling another question here. Let's see what we got here. Hi, Mike. I'm overweight and 50 years old. Can I do cardio 5 days a week for 30 minutes with 3-day strength training? Appreciate. I think you can, definitely. But once again, I would have a plan for those 30 minutes of cardio. Like, don't do the cardio. Obviously, it's going to help you lose some weight because you're going to be burning calories. But I'd rather you look at the cardio as creating a response. Like I would almost rather you do maybe 2 days of that high intensity type workout. Like I talked about. Let me pull it up here. Maybe do two days of high intensity type cardio, and then do maybe a day of like a 30-minute moderate type cardio or 75% of your maximum heart rate. And then I really do I like the resistance training for sure. What do you say, 3 days a week resistance training? I think that would be great. But don't look at the exercise as necessarily helping you, lose weight. Look at it as like you're increasing your muscle mass, and that's going to increase your metabolism, which is going to help you lose weight, right? You're making your heart stronger, doing your aerobics, which is great, but don't look at it like it's going to control your weight. Work out for the health. I know you put healthy here. Appreciate getting back and healthy, which is so important. But I like that plan. I think it's ideal, and especially if you follow my other philosophy of eating a low-carb, whole natural food diet, and then you're fooling around with a little bit of intermittent fasting. I think that's great. I think it's great, Pamela. Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about, this other resistance training workout. This is kind of my favorite way to train. You can do this a couple of different ways. If you see, I made a note here, 75% of your weight training is at moderate levels. What I mean by that is that you got 2 ways of doing these 45-minute workouts. And this is a little bit more hypertrophy than maybe those shorter, high-intensity 10-minute workouts. Either you can do this, I like to do this personally most of the time instinctively, meaning that I'm 58 years old. And when I feel good and I go to the gym and I'm ready to do resistance training, I'm going to go for it. And I may go to failure on a few sets. I may work at 90% effort. But then most of the time, I'm just like working relatively hard, maybe 75% intensity. But another way of doing it is sometimes I'll cycle myself, meaning that I say I'm going to do a 10-week cycle. The first 2 weeks, I'm going to be working at 75% intensity. So for example, if I can bench press 200 pounds for say 15 reps, I may only bench 200 pounds for like maybe 8 reps, for the first 2 weeks. Then I might pop it up to 10 reps, 12 reps, and I'm going to progressively work harder and harder into the last 2 weeks of a 10-week cycle. I'm working 90, 100% effort. I'm going to failure, and I'm trying to increase my strength, or like, for example, if I can only bench say 200 pounds, 15 reps at the end of 10 weeks, I want to bench it, I want to bench 205, 15 reps, like for example, 210 pounds, 15 reps. So that's a couple of different ways of doing it. Let's see what we got here. You got another question here. Thanks for the insight, but if I choose to do an extended water fast, do you think it should take vitamin? Yes, I do. I think you definitely, the main thing is I think you should make sure you're keeping your sodium up. No question about it. All the electrolytes, potassium, sodium, magnesium, big three. I definitely would do that. Like for example, like look what I'm drinking here. I'm drinking these, I love this. This is my celery. This is 16 ounces of celery. And give you an example. 35 calories, 963 milligrams of potassium. The adequate intake of potassium, people should be having 4,700 milligrams, like over 4,000 milligrams a day. So I'm getting 1,000 milligrams of potassium here for 35 calories. I think you should be doing things like that. Obviously not when you're water fasting, but during your eating window. If you're doing it, another thing you can do, which is pretty aggressive, but there's great research on it, is alternate day fasting if you want to lose 100 pounds. And I would want you to do that on a doctor's supervision though. Like go to Dr. Jason Fung's site, maybe talk to him, maybe talk to your doctor about it. But alternate day fasting, where you're like fasting for 36 hours and then taking in all your calories, within that one day with that short eating window, was incredible. And there were even some studies showing that even within the 36-hour fast, if you just took in 25% of your calories, just like 500 to 700 calories, even during that fasting period, with things like this, like some vegetable juice and things like that, you'll still get tremendous benefit. But that's aggressive. It's not for everyone. I wouldn't do it for an extended period of time, but I would want you to get a doctor's supervision to do like alternate day fasting for an extended period of time. But it's shocking how, people email me and comment to me all the time how they've lost 50 pounds, 100 pounds doing alternate day fasting, because I have a number of videos about it. Okay, right. And when it comes to like the reps and this type of training, I would call this more like metabolic stress type training, continuous tension type training. Like this, some people feel there's three basic ways you put on muscle. One way is called muscle tension. You lift heavy weights, create tension in the muscle. The other way is muscle damage. You're breaking the muscle cell down, it repairs. And the third way is metabolic stress. Some people don't totally agree with it. I love the concept of metabolic stress, where you pump the muscle up, metabolites build up within the muscles, and it creates a training response, creates a training effect, and increases protein synthesis, and you get more muscular. And I love training like that. That's how I do most of my training. First of all, I find it incredibly easy on the joints. You lift moderately heavy weights, even light weights, you can pump up the muscle. You want to be in, I like to be in that 12 to 20 rep range. I love training like this. I think especially when you get older, and maybe especially if you're like me, where you're a little banged up, like I mentioned before, I rode motocross as a kid. I surfed all over the world. I've been lifting weights from the age of 16 pretty regularly. I skateboarded all over, broke my elbow. I haven't never had operations. I got a bad knee from a knee operation. This type of training is my favorite. As opposed to that short high intensity, which I occasionally do. I like to do these moderate workouts, keeping the weight relatively on the comfortable side 75% of the time, and 25% of the time I really go for it when working 90% to 100% effort. I think it's a great way to train long term, for sure. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, I guess that's pretty much it. But let's take some questions. I know we have some questions here. It's funny. I feel like I a couple of things. I want to try to get like a set time, during the week when I can do these live broadcasts. I made a mistake. Like, it took me so long. I know I blasted through those 9-10 slides so quick. It took me so long to make those slides up that I kept on delaying this live broadcast. I know some people, I made a big mistake. I was working on a Thursday night and I accidentally hit the go live button, and I was like, I was being recorded going live while I was making these slides. I'm glad I didn't do anything like silly, but it took me so long. And I think in the future, I think I'm going to try to limit it to a less amount of slides, and I want to get more interaction from everyone. And maybe I was thinking about doing it on Thursday, late afternoon, early evening. I know I got people from California watching this. We got people from Ireland, from the Netherlands, from the UK. I'm trying to pick a time where that really works for everyone. I know it could be late for some people now. Let's say what Joanne got here. Okay, Joanne, I exercise 30 minutes, 3 days a week, walk getting to 1,000 steps. I think that's wonderful. 10,000 steps. Awesome. Love it. And when you mean exercise, I'm assuming the 30 minutes is more your resistance training. And maybe if you're doing full body, I love 3 full body 30-minute workouts. I think that's great. If you can even split things up where you can do like you can do one full body for 30 minutes once, and then maybe if you wanted like split your body up and do like upper body the other day by itself with core, with ab work, or maybe lower body the next day with core. That's another good way of doing it. So you're hitting each body part twice a week. I like to say, I like to personally hit each body part maybe with 10 total sets of training per week, pretty much. But when you think about it, when it comes to like the smaller body parts, like your biceps and your triceps, whenever you're training like your chest, you're working your shoulders and your triceps, right? Whenever you're training your back, you're working your biceps and your forearms, so your arms don't require as much volume with your training as your other body parts do, as the bigger body parts do. So you can take that into consideration. All right. Any other questions out there about intermittent fasting, weight loss, and any other workout routine questions on your duration? It's interesting. I find you always get two extremes. People who love to work out, unfortunately, I think work out too much. It's just, I did it most of my life. I did it for 20 years. I know I couldn't get that buzz unless I was like pushing. And now the older I get, the more I realize that, you want to work out to retrain to create the response you want. Oh, Danny's here. Oh, this is great, Danny. Danny's another fitness guy that's doing a great job. What's my favorite form of intermittent fasting? And Danny's, I think, has come to us from Ireland, so I know it's late there. I appreciate him checking in. My favorite, I seem to be settling into 18-6. I think that's probably my favorite. I think it worked the best for me. But I'm a big believer in constantly varying your intermittent fasting strategy, because I want a calorie cycle without having to necessarily count calories, which I do count calories from time to time. So what I like to do, I seem to lately been falling into 18-6. So I'll fast for like 18 hours, maybe Monday, Tuesday. But then Wednesday, I may only do a 14-hour fast. Like, let's say I'm doing a hard resistance training workout that day. I may drink, for example, I may break my fast before I work out with one of these celery drinks, but I'll put in some collagen protein powder. I'll put in some hemp seed, because collagen protein powder, which I take every day, is an incomplete protein. It's missing tryptophan, one of those amino acids. So whereas hemp seed has that. So I may mix a few scoops, like 25 grams of protein in this. This will break my fast. I may drink this before workout. So maybe Wednesday I may only fast 14 hours. Then I may do a 16-hour fast, say on Thursday, Friday. I may do an OMAD day. I like to fast 24 hours and maybe once or twice per month. And that's how I pretty much cycle my calories. Like, for example, if I'm fasting for only 14 hours, I'm just going to eat more automatically, whereas I'm fasting for 18 hours. But I like the 18-6. My wife is a total 16-8. We've both been doing this, me and my wife, since maybe 10, 12 years ago. My wife has this rule, she doesn't eat a thing till 12 no matter what. But exercise-wise, she only pretty much walks, and then we're done with dinner by 8 o'clock every single night. I seem to be going a little bit longer. I seem to go 18-6 is probably my favorite. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I'm training 4 times a week, and my back hurts sometimes. Do you think I work out too much? It's hard to say. There's so many factors when it comes to back pain. Me personally, from surfing, every disc in my lower back is herniated or bulged, and I got 3 bulged herniated discs in my neck, my cervical, from this horrible surfing. I took a horrible fall in Costa Rica surfing like 20 years ago, herniated some discs in my neck, and they bother me from time to time. I would say a big part of it could be like what you were doing with your workouts in the gym. Obviously, I would literally not do anything that hurts your back. If you want to take a biomechanical approach, I'd say McGill. I read all his textbooks. He's like an expert on lower back pain. He talks about the big 3, which are like planks, bird dogs, and like a partial sit-up. Look him up, Stuart McGill. After this video, I'll put a link to his website. I've even spoken to him on the phone. I've referred clients to him over the years. But I'm also a big believer, this is somewhat controversial. I believe in Dr. John Sarno, who wrote that book like 25, 30 years ago, Healing Back Pain, where he talks about how, there are psychological factors that can stop the circulation of blood and oxygen to the body, which causes pain. And I definitely think there's something to it. I've had clients, and even myself, who have had chronic back pain for years, who read Dr. John Sarno. I'll put a link to his book below this video as well once it's over, who just, read his book, believe in the concept, and their back pain goes away. But I would say generally, just don't do anything that hurts your back. And if you can go like a couple of months without hurting your back, hopefully the back pain will just dissipate. Because back surgery is something you don't want to do. It's very unsuccessful. You know, look at someone like Tiger Woods, like 10 back operations, right? Unfortunately, this car accident was a very sad thing. But previous to that, multiple operations, and he seems to never get over the back pain, right? Let's see what we got here. Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it. So we got here. So Joanne's got a question. Please, Mike, look at my above statement. Let's see. Okay, what we got here. This one, Joanne. I exercise 30 minutes, 3 days a week. And what I think that's great, Joanne. I think 10,000 steps is wonderful. And like I said about the workouts, I think 30-minute resistance training workouts are great. You know, I wouldn't kill yourself every single time. I think you can mix it up. You can train your whole body, or you can split your body up into like upper body, lower body, and maybe do core every time. I think it's good. I think it's a great thing. Cool. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. We got another. Oh, here we got Tim. Okay, Mike. I do OMAD 6 days a week with a cheat day once a week. Am I fasting too much? You know, I think that would be a good, more of a short-term strategy, you know? I hate to mess people up, though, if you're doing well. If you're doing good, I don't want to mess you up. That's the first thing I would say. A lot of it has to do is how much food you're eating when you're eating one meal a day. If you truly are eating enough food, like I know people who do like keto, the very high fat diet, really can't take in enough food. I want to pull that comment back up. Can't take in enough food when they're doing OMAD. But if you're, and the one cheat day is a good thing to do because you want to up your calories. But if you really are in an extreme calorie deficit consistently, like 6 days a week, like say you're like, you know, a 1,500, 1,000 calorie deficit from your maintenance calories, and you're doing that consistently for weeks on end, then I don't think it's good. First of all, you might be a little malnourished. You may not be getting enough protein. I find people have a hard time taking in enough protein when they're only eating one meal a day. But if you can do it, great. I even like a little bit of a modified OMAD. I think if you were doing like a 20, maybe a 22-2 or something like that, where you're giving yourself like a 2-hour eating window, maybe you have one small meal of like protein, you know, like say you have, 8 ounces of shrimp, so you get your 50 grams of protein right there, and then you have your normal nice big meal to make sure you're getting an adequate amount of protein. You can do that, but always keep in mind you don't want to be in like a super long-term calorie deficit, because you're going to over-exaggerate that metabolic adaptation of your metabolism slowing down when you're losing weight. Whenever you lose weight, your metabolism will always slow down to some degree, but you can over-exaggerate it if you're always in a calorie deficit for like months. So I like that you're having a cheat day, and if you feel like you are eating enough and you're doing great, stay with it. But it's okay to take a diet break every now and then, just go off for a week, or maybe increase your eating window a little bit with the OMAD. Let's see what we got here. Okay, again about water fasting. Okay, you're 300 pounds. You want to be 210, so you get about 90 pounds to go. So I have plenty of fat reserve. What can I do to do a continuous 12 weeks water fast with vitamins? I would say, I definitely would do this. If you're really going to go like water fasting straight up, definitely the sodium, electrolytes. I would take a multivitamin, but I think you should do it under a doctor's supervision. I know you got a lot of fat reserves, and I know there were that study, like that one guy, right? He was like, he water fasted under doctor's supervision for over a year. I know it can sound mind-blowing to some people. Did like 360 some odd days only drinking liquids and sodium and multivitamins, but he was under a doctor's supervision. That's a pretty aggressive thing to do. I'd rather see you do the alternate day fasting, but I don't want to discourage anyone. If you're psyched and you're motivated, but find a doctor, like a Dr. Jason Fung. Find someone who believes in water fasting that you can work with, that can keep an eye on you, when you're doing it. See, I like to stay in my lane, like even though I love this stuff and I study it and I read every intermittent fasting and fasting study that comes out, and I read everyone's book, like that, the Obesity Code, Dr. Jason Fung. Love the book. I read it, like the actual paper book, twice, and I've listened to it 3 times on my 2-hour walks on audio. But I want to stay in my lane. Like when I recommend fasting to most people, I'm talking, You know, like Danny was saying, what's my favorite? I'm talking 16.8, 18.6, oh mad. Me as a fitness trainer, you know, even though I have undergraduate things, you know, with nutrition, all that, you know, I wouldn't recommend someone to do a 12-week water fast without a doctor's supervision. I think you should get a doctor's supervision for sure, but do it. I mean, look into it. I'm sure there are doctors near you. If you went to Dr. Jason Fung's, you know, Facebook group, I'm sure you know, you can join. There's tons of people doing things like that. They'll recommend a doctor in your area that you can work with. I'll try to find someone for you and link it below this video as well too, because I'm a member of that group as well. Let's see. Hey, Melissa, we go. Oh, thanks, Mike. Oh, I really appreciate it. That's great. I'm glad for tuning in. It seems like most of the comments are coming from YouTube. I wonder if anyone from Facebook. I wonder if this is working good. I hope it's working. I don't know if I like this. Like I'm using 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂, which only works for Mac because then I can pull in all these slides. But for me to go broadcast on YouTube and Facebook, I started using this new software called Restream. But I don't know if I'm getting any of the comments from Facebook, so we'll see. I'll evaluate the whole thing. Next time I may just go straight up on YouTube. Okay, so any other questions out there? Anything about fitness, health, weight loss? All right, well, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. This was a blast. I'm glad. This is the first time I kind of like planned it ahead and announced it, and I'm glad everyone showed up. I appreciate everyone from all over the world showing up. It really makes me feel good. Well, take care, everyone. You know, I hope everyone's doing well, had a nice Sunday, and okay, take care. Good night, everyone.